Hey everyone, today we're going to be demonstrating on how to recover. I'll be working on this rooftop unit right here. It has 2 circuits. I'll be recovering both of them. Problem with the unit is 2 bad TXVs. Sometimes this happens. This unit's probably about 10 years old. It's been happening to multiple units on this site, so it's not far-fetched. But first, we got to recover. Alrighty, so here we have what I'll be using today. So I always bring up my tool bag. Be using a recovery cylinder rated for 410A. My recovery machine, this is a Robinair. My vacuum pump, I'll be showing you a little bit later what the first step that I like to do, and that's why my vacuum pump's here, and my scale to make sure we had the correct charge. You also always want to bring up a extension cord. This one is 50 foot. Usually they're pretty good about having outlets up on the roof, sometimes not, but if not, you'll just have to run it down. Inside this bag I have some rags. I'll be showing you a little trick that I do for recovery, and let's get it started. All right, first things first, guys, we want to shut down the unit. We don't want it coming on while we're recovering, right? So we'll shut down the unit here. You always want to lock out, tag out, especially if you're going to leave the unit in not operating conditions. It's just a safety precaution. You could be working on electrical and someone could be like, oh, why is this unit off? And bam, you know. So you always want to lock out, tag out using your own lock and your own key. So we can see here the unit's off now, have no power, right? So now we'll start our recovery, and the first step in the process will be to vacuum our recovery tank. Make sure it is in a vacuum before we use it. This is also helpful in helping you without even using the machine at some points, because you have that different pressure. Your tank is in a vacuum. You'll be able to suck out some refrigerant until it equalizes. So just a helpful tip. All right, guys, so right here on the unit next to us has a service outlet or a convenient outlet. It is hot, so I'll be putting on my extension cord here. Come over here and hooking up my recovery tank to my vacuum pump. This is a JB vacuum pump, 7.5 CFM. See, not too bad. Those convenient outlets really come in handy. Just, you don't really need to run that long of an extension cord, and it's nice when buildings have it. Anyways, guys, so I hooked up plugged in my extension cord, plugged in my vacuum pump. And so what we'll do here is we'll vacuum this cylinder. Make sure, it doesn't have to be for long. It's just to make sure there's no moisture in there or no other refrigerant. When they come brand new, they come vacuum sealed. I already used this one, so I'm just gonna run it in a quick vac, bring it down to a vacuum, and then we can start our recovery process. So here I just hook up my suction port here to the vapor side, my red hose to the liquid side, my service port to my vacuum pump. I mean, we could use a vacuum hose. That's why I like using the 4-valve manifold. It gives you that vacuum hose. Make sure everything's nice and tight. Don't want to be sucking in any air. I'll check my hoses first, make sure I got no leaks here. I shouldn't. I usually keep everything nice and tight. Alrighty, turn on my vacuum pump. See that my hoses go in a vacuum. Now I'll open up these valves. We had a little bit of residual left in there. We'll let it vacuum out for the time being. It shouldn't take too long. Probably run it for like 15 minutes. While you're letting this happen, you could be setting up other stuff and just, or bringing up the rest of your stuff to the roof if you need anything else. All right, guys, so we let that run for about 15 minutes. As you can see, we are in a vacuum, so we should be good. So we'll close these up, close up our valves. Make sure you close up all the valves. You don't want any of that atmospheric air getting in. And now we can start the recovery process. All right, guys, so first things first, we're gonna hook up to our unit. We're gonna do we're doing both circuits. But first we're gonna do circuit A. You wanna hook up your blue side to your suction. Always remember that, blue with suction. And your red hose to your discharge side. Alright, we'll open up our valves. We should see that our pressure went up. Looks like we have no leaks. I checked everything here. I think the system's fully charged. It was just bad TXVs, but we will double check right now when we recover. So let's show you guys how to hook up the recovery machine to our system and to the tank. All right, first things first, guys. So right here we have a field piece digital scale with Bluetooth. So the handle has a magnet, and you can prompt it up like this. I zero out the scale. Then you want to weigh your tank. Our tank weighs 16.5 ounce. So the reason why you're weighing your tank is because you're going to put a charge, right? And we know if we look at the nameplate on our unit and we read it, it'll say circuit A has 17.2 pounds. So that's, if we had no leaks, we should weigh an additional 17.2 pounds to the 6.5 pounds that the tank weighs. All right, now we can hook up our recovery machine. Okay, so on the recovery machine, what you want to do is you want to grab your service hose, that's your yellow hose, and you want to tie it into the inlet of your recovery machine. So why are we doing this? Because this is the suction side of your recovery machine. So once we open up the valves and turn on this recovery machine, it will be basically sucking out the refrigerant from the unit, sucking it in through here and pushing it out to here. You're out into your tank. So you always have to have an extra hose to bring up when you recover. So now I'll be attaching this extra hose to the out of our recovery machine and going to the liquid side of our tank. All right, so you want to make sure everything's snug. You don't want to be sucking in air, right? All our valves are closed so far. So first things first, we're gonna open up our suction and our discharge on our manifold. Now we'll open up our service port, which should allow the refrigerant to flow through here. Now I have it valved off right here, so I'm going to open it up and open up my inlet. As you can see, the pressure rose quite quickly. So I'm gonna put it on liquid setting because right now we're gonna be pumping out liquid. Now, I will open up my discharge of the recovery machine, and as soon as I open up that red valve right there, it should be sucking in refrigerant. But first, what I wanna do is zero out my scale so I could count up to 17.2. So here we go. If you could hear that, that's a refrigerant traveling through the recovery machine from the unit through the recovery machine into our tank. And as you can see, the ounces are going up, so that means the refrigerant's being stored in the tank. So what I like to do now is I'll let this happen by itself, just because the tank was in a vacuum, until it equalizes. Once the refrigerant equalizes in the tank with the system pressure, then I'll turn on my recovery machine. All right, so our system equalized with our tank. So now we're gonna turn on the recovery machine. Now this isn't the biggest recovery machine, so it may take a little while. And also you'll start seeing this discharge pressure rise. It's because it's trying to push in all the refrigerant into this tank, and it's fighting it once there's more pressure in the tank, right? So a little trick that I have that I like to use is I like to wet rags. I'll wet rags and wrap it around the tank to bring down that pressure inside the tank, so it'll make it easier to recover. Also, if you're gonna recover, try to always do it in the shade and try to do it first thing in the morning. It's a lot easier than doing it in the middle of the day when the sun's beaming on you and beaming on the tank, raising that pressure. It may take a little bit longer to recover on a hotter day. But I'm gonna go wet these rags, wrap it around the tank, and we'll be right back. All right guys, as you can see, I wet these rags, wrapped it around the tank to try to keep that discharge pressure down. So we'll cool the tank, try to keep it out of the sun, and it's just due to that pressure temperature relationship we're always talking about in class. So eventually you'll start seeing a little steam come off of this, and you may have to keep wetting the rags. Other guys use ice buckets, and that's great when there's ice available to you, but usually you'll find water, you wet the rags, and just wrap it around the tank. As you can see, we're already recovered about 7 pounds, maybe 6, give or take, because of the additional weight from the rags. But you'll keep on seeing this suction pressure drop, and it'll drop over here, and once it gets down to 0, that's where you want to be. Also, you want to see that the weight is 17.2, right? Because if we had no leaks, then we should recover 17.2. Now the recovery process could take a little while, so while this is happening, typically I would start prepping or roping up my my torches and everything else, but today we're just gonna recover, so just stick around and wait. So I just had to re-wet the rags. As you can see, our discharge pressure was climbing. Earlier, I don't know if you could see it still, you could see the steam coming off the tank. So I lowered down the setting a little bit on the inlet. I'm gonna put it back up. We're about 400, and we don't want to hit the high limit on the discharge. So we just gotta monitor that. Keep wetting your rags. We're about 10 pounds so far recovered. So maybe we're really at 9, give or take, because of the weight of the rags. So we're not too far off yet to get to that 17. So yeah, like I said, It's just a process that you got to wade through. Keep wetting your rags, watching the discharge pressure, making sure that it doesn't go on high limit, because then you got to stop the recovery process, let the cool down the tank, and start it over again. Alright guys, as you can see here, we're at 15 pounds. We're inching closer to that 17.2. But if you look at your compound gauges, you can see you're almost at 0. So that means we've almost taken out all that pressure out of this system, at least for circuit A. And you can see it also on your recovery tank inlet side. Now I adjusted from liquid to a little more vapor, because we probably got a lot of the liquid out. As you can see, our discharge pressure dropped. It's not fighting us that much anymore. Rags, I wet the rags one more time just to help us out a little bit. And yeah, so 2 more pounds and we'll be finished recovering circuit A. Sadly, I don't have the TXVs on hand. They're coming from the factory. I always like to go OEM. This is a carrier unit, and I ordered them from Sigler. They should be here in the next week, and hopefully I could bring you guys a video showing of a TXV replacement. Alright, so we are almost at 0, but I wanted to show you guys this here. As you can see there, you can see like the compressor sweating, right? And that is caused because we're boiling off whatever refrigerant it's left in here. So we're boiling it off of the oil, and that's why it's taking so long to recover everything, right? So now I like to run my recovery into a vacuum, because then you know you got everything out of there. This process does take a while, as I've said, but we're almost there. Okay guys, as you can see, we are in a vacuum. There's probably a couple more ounces left in there. We're around 16, going up and down. So I'll show you guys now what to do when you're done with your recovery. So what you're gonna want to do is close off your valves. Close off your service port. I like to close all the valves. Come down here. Close your inlet. As you can see, you still have pressure on your discharge, and that's what's in this hose. So we're gonna close this off and then close this off. Shut off your unit. And right now when I open this, you're gonna bleed off a little bit, and that's what's inside your hose. And so I hope this was helpful, guys. That's the recovery process. Make sure to like and subscribe. Comment if you have a better way of doing things, let me know. And like I said, I hope you guys found this helpful. Thanks for tuning in.